Okay, I've got Phil Lollar. Phil, this is also going to be part of our Fasten Like Nails podcast and broadcast. And so, Phil, welcome once again.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're going to skip all of the Adventures in Odyssey stuff. And
well, that takes up most of my time. So we're done. It's nice being on the program. Thanks.
Jungle Jam and Friends and at Odyssey. Okay, well, everyone knows that you've been involved in all those things. Well, maybe okay, I'll tell you what. Maybe some people don't know. And for those that are joining us on this podcast or the Zoom meeting and watching it, you're looking at my background here. I am taking a huge risk, Phil. I am outside at a cafe, my all-time favorite cafe, Coach Bakery, and it is 100% chance of rain. And I am sitting outside without an umbrella.
100%. And you're outside without an umbrella. That's good. That'll work.
Yeah. So this might be a short interview. We'll see. Okay. So Phil, I don't want to go into, we got the other recording. Okay. You were one of the co-creators of Adventures in Odyssey.
Yes, sir.
How many years? 38, 35 years?
This has been, since I was involved as one of the creators, it was 35 years ago. And the program has been on the air nearly 34 years. So.
And then Jungle Jam and Friends.
And then Jungle Jam. Yeah, that was in the 90s that we did Jungle Jam, which was a lot of fun. And, a whole bunch of other programs in between too. So
what is inside of you? What is that inside of you that causes this compelling desire to create things like Odyssey and Jungle Jam? What?
That's a good question. That's part of what I will probably be talking about next week at the Guild during the classes that I'm going to teach. I mean, some of the things that I'm going to touch on is Christianity and the creative process, and where that process starts, how it comes to fruition. How you use that as a Christian. My background, not to get too deep into the weeds here, but my background, probably as a creative person, my background is probably like a lot of people my age. My parents always thought that was a very nice and quaint and fun and friendly thing to be. It's nice that you're doing theater and you're doing creative stuff and all that stuff. Now, what are you really going to do? What are you really going to do for a living? What are you really going to do? What substantive thing are you going to do? And I think that a lot of times they used Christianity and the church as sort of a way to sort of my parents in particular, but I think a lot of parents at that generation were did this. They sort of clamped down on creativity, and that was probably a response to the general culture. The church sort of retreated from the general culture right after World War II, and maybe even a little bit earlier than that, and as an influence in the general culture. And I think that was where those folks were at the time. Those Christian folks were at the time. So anybody who had creativity in them and wanted a creative life, an artistic kind of life, it was always nice as a hobby. But what are you really going to do? How are you going to make a living, and how are you going to be contributing substantively to the world and then to Christianity specifically? And I just really never understood that. These are gifts that God has given me. There are gifts that God gave other people that I know God gave other people, and and I determined early on that if God gave me these gifts, there must be a reason for it, and He must be wanting me to use them in a way that pleases Him. So I determined early on in my life to find out just what that was going to be, how that was going to work. And then once you do that, once you say, okay, God, you gave me these gifts, and now what am I going to do with them?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do with them? It takes you and then you have your own little side desires. Okay. You have your own little things that you're thinking, you're imagining, you're wondering, oh, this is going to be so cool. And then, but God, of course, says, okay, I have this plan, and here's what's going to happen, and here's where you're going to go. I had absolutely no clue when I was young, when I was really young, that audio drama would be my main creative outlet. I mean, that just wasn't something that I even thought of. I mean, audio drama was something that disappeared back in the 1950s. How can it possibly be something that's happening now? And and continuing to happen. And of course, now it's blossoming, and for a long while, Odyssey was the only thing out there. But now, good grief, there's so much more stuff out there, and every day, every week, somebody is launching a new program, not just in the Christian realm, but all over. Podcasting and dramatic podcasting is huge, enormous. So, and that goes with the cyclical nature of the technology as well. So, it starts out with radio, and you had radio dramas and comedies and whatnot, and then it went to television and movies and, all of that. And once we start going too far with the technology, we kind of have to go back to our roots.
Yeah.
And so people who are creative people and really love story, go back to what I consider to be pure storytelling, the pure storytelling art, which is audio drama. It engages the listener and the audience. You have to actively participate in it. You can't just be a passive listener. In order to be able to get anything out of audio drama, you have to participate in it. So it's a soundtrack that we're providing you, and you get to provide the pictures in your head. And so many people go, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know. And then all they have to do is start listening to it. And then once they start listening to it, they're like hooked. So I think it's a wonderful medium. I really have enjoyed working in it and making a career out of it. Good grief. That's amazing to me.
So Phil, what when students come here, all ages, say a 60-year-old register today,
woohoo,
14 to 60, what's the root foundation? What's the quintessential element of storytelling? As you teach next week, is there a heart to storytelling that's like the most simple? You miss this, you miss it all. What is that?
Yeah, there are lots of there's not just one thing. There are multiple things, and when you talk about foundational elements of story, so often people feel like, well, I know that already. What's the next thing? And so a lot of people come to me when they take a course from me, or even some of my colleagues as well. Students are looking for a magic pill, or that wand, that Harry Potter wand that you can wave around and say, okay, here, boom, now I'm giving you the zap that you need to be creative and make great stories. And they don't realize that what I'm teaching you from the very beginning, what I'm telling you right from the get-go, the foundational elements, that's it. That's what it is. And so just in music, you have 12 notes. That's all there are, 12 notes in an octave. There are different octaves. So you can have as many octaves as you want, but there are 12 notes, right? That's it. All of music through all history has been done with 12 notes. Wow. Every song, every symphony, no matter how complex, no matter how simple, no matter how grand or every music form that has ever existed has always worked with 12 notes.
Wow.
That's the same thing that goes on with, it's the exact same thing that happens with the foundational elements of story. There are Aristotle, back, thousands of years ago, it was said of Aristotle that he knew everything there was to know. He certainly wrote about everything that he could think of at that point. And in his Poetics, he talked about story. He talked about what the foundational elements of story are. He had 6 of them. I've reduced them to 5 because I believe that his 6 actually in our time translates into 5. But they're plot, character, communication, which is divided up into dialogue and presentation, and then theme. So you've got basically 5 elements. It's really 4, but there's the number 3 is split up into 2 parts. And those are the foundational elements. If you have a problem in your script, if your story is not coming out, this goes, by the way, for all forms of storytelling, whether it's audio, whether it's visual, whether it's books, whether it's oral storytelling, whether it's poems, whether it's song lyrics, if you're telling a story. If you've got a problem, it's in one of those areas. If you've got a big problem, if it's not working, it's one of those areas. And that's I could pretty much say, like your rain forecast, 100%. I could pretty much say 100% of the time it's in there, but I'll give myself a little leeway and say, okay, 99% of the time it's actually one of those elements. And so we want to go over that. We want to go over those foundational elements. I've always been very, very, very surprised by people who've had a lot of experience writing. They'll actually work on programs. I've worked with them, whether it's on Cartoon Network, whether it's in television, whether it's in film, whether it's an audio drama. And I'll bring up some of these elements, and they've never heard of them before. People who've never even heard. They actually have been working with them. They just never knew that that's what they were.
Yeah.
So this is our way of saying, you know what? everything that you write story-wise, you've got to go back to these foundational elements. And if you've got a problem, you got now you can take those just as with every song, 12 notes, and you can examine this endless creativity with 12 notes. Well, it's the same thing with the story elements. 4 or 5 story elements, but that's every story that's ever been told. Every story that's ever been told, no matter how complex or how simple, have these elements in them. And if you had a problem with them, it's in one of those elements.
So that's awesome. I'm going to segue into this. And with that foundation, there's another foundation, a weaving together of the divine partnership and mankind. And when, Phil, at the Guild, I don't know why this happens, but it happens every single time. I can't wait for you to experience this, Phil. I promise you, this will be like no other experience you have ever had in your life.
Oh, absolutely.
It's happened for 10 years in a row. I'm anticipating it's going to happen again. But in 2 Peter chapter 1, it uses this word epikorageo, which is the word for choreography. And it's a choreography that comes at a great expense. So David said, I'll not give unto the Lord that which costs me nothing. Right. This week, as students put out, as they sacrifice, it's grueling. It is grueling. They're going to be up. They're going to be up at 6 a.m. They're going to be up until 11 p.m., writing script and so forth. But what I want them to experience more than anything, I want them to experience an actual partnership with divine power, divine presence. And when they do, and Phil, you and I as teachers, as mentors there, when they see it in us, I mean, literally, we have to, I know for me, I have to kind of I don't like to say beg, but that's like, God, we can't do this without you.
Oh, yeah.
And
the first sentence in the Bible is, in the beginning, God created. Created is the 5th word of Scripture. It's the 5th word of Scripture. It's the first verb in the Bible. God didn't ponder. God didn't contemplate. God created. He acted. He did something. He created things.
That's cool.
Now, you translate over to John, the book of John in the New Testament. In the beginning was the Word. So what did God do? He spoke creation into existence. And who was that? Who was that spoke? Who was that Word?
Yeah.
The Word was the Logos. Yeah, I mean, when you think that, when you tie that together that way, you go, oh my goodness, that's stunning. It's really stunning because that means, very simply, story is everything.
Yeah.
Story is everything. When God said, "Let there be light, let there be time," we're starting now. That's the beginning of a linear narrative storytelling that we call history. History. That's it. That's what we're doing. And if you think of your life that way, this is, to me, the connection to the divine. This is what I try to get across. That connection, when you think of your life in terms of story, when you start thinking of yourself in terms of story, you start realizing that there is this great author going on, and you're part of that creative process. And then when you're down, when things are really awful for you, when you're hitting rock bottom, you're thinking, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. If you're starting to think in terms of story, well, what happens in stories?
Yeah.
What happens in stories? How does a story unfold? Well, look at it. Look at what goes on. You get to the point where in whether it's fiction or whether it's real life, you get to the point where people are rock bottom. They've hit rock bottom. They can't go any further. The children of Israel, the Hebrews, backed up against the Red Sea, and the most powerful army on earth is about to annihilate them. They've hit rock bottom. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? What's happening? What's going on here? Yes. They're screaming at Moses, "Why'd you bring us out here to die? What's going on?" David, rock bottom. What have I done? I've done everything everybody's asked of me. I've been a good, faithful son-in-law and subject of the king, and he wants to kill me. Yeah. He wants to kill me. I'm at my lowest. What's going on? What's happening? What's going on? I don't. Jesus died. He died. Boom. You can't get more rock bottom than that. He died. He's put into a little cave, and a stone is rolled over the entrance. But what happens next? It's a story. That's not the end of the story. What happens next? So you always got to think in terms of that. If you can think, we're created to be that way. But and I think this is also very satanic, spiritual, as far as that's concerned. Satan and just our own sinfulness wants to get us so caught up in the details that we forget about the big picture. We forget about the idea that there's story going on here, and that Satan would love nothing better for us than to be so caught up in the minutia and the details and this little bitty business that we forget, oh wait, there's something that's coming on the horizon. I could look back on the past of the story and gain strength from that, and then look to the horizon. And the worst times is not really when you hit rock bottom, but when you're all the way up at the top.
Yeah.
Because when you forget everything's going well, I don't need anything else. I can forget all about this. I can put this is the parable, I build bigger barns. I put my feet up and I say, hey, I can relax and soul, enjoy thyself, and then God says, hey, you know what? There's more to the story than that. There's more to the story. It's all story. Every story is everything, because everything's a story.
I was reading in Proverbs chapter 3, the famous verse we all memorize, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, he'll direct your paths. But then, guess what it says after this? Your vats will be full, your wine will be running over, okay? All these great things, right? Guess what he says next, Phil? This will blow you away. He says, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord. And I'm like, what? My wine is full and my vats are full, the wine is running over and my barns are filled. Despise not the chastening of the Lord. And it hit me like a rock. It was like when things are going so well, God has to chasten us to bring us back so that we remember where all those good things came from.
Exactly. That's the way the story is designed. That's the way he's designed the story of humanity, the story of humankind, the story of us. That's exactly what happens. I love all that. It's great that you bring that up, because if you look at Deuteronomy, if you look at the Deuteronomic books, the Mosaic books, and you see that where Moses is giving instructions to the children of Israel from God, he's saying, okay, here's what God wants you to do. You're going into the promised land. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to have this, you're going to have that, you're going to have this, you're going to have that, and everything is going to be wonderful. And you have a land flowing with milk and honey and all this stuff. And then in the very next verse, he says, and when you fail, then you need to turn back to me and remember, who your God is and what's going to happen and here's how you make atonement. And here's how you do it. He's built it into the story. He knows that we're going to fail. He knows it right after that. So it's like a guarantee, which is so wonderful, because you realize that in your life, you go, wow, okay, that's incredible. That's really incredible to think that he knows I'm going to fail. If I know I'm going to fail, it doesn't mean I shouldn't try not to fail. I shouldn't try my best to do my best the whole time and to not sin. But when I sin, he's provided a path out of it. Yeah. In the story, it's built into what we are. So I love those verses. I love reading through all of that.
Really, I'm blown away. This is amazing. You know what? I don't want to say a whole lot more. I mean, I'm ready to roll. We're going to work together.
Yep.
These classes are going to be amazing. I think I want to do something different this year. I'm going to need your help. Somehow, I want the students to not only write, as they're writing their, 2 to 7 minute stories for their dramas, we'll break them up into groups. Each of them are going to do a little miniature audio drama. We'll have Alan Hurley there for the sound, and John Campbell, he'll be there he'll be on Zoom for us, but he'll be doing the music. So it's going to sound really amazing, like it usually does.
Sure.
I think, Phil, if we have time, we're going to make time. I want the students to be pushed a little bit extra this time. So Lou Starrett's going to be teaching every morning, and he's going to be teaching on the biblical insights of breaking a horse. He's going to take a horse that's never been ridden before, and it's obnoxious. It's a horse that's wild, and he's going to teach. There are going to be several hundred of us there, and he's going to teach a horse that is wild, a horse that is rebellious, a horse that is stubborn, selfish, self-willed. That horse is going to whinny. It's going to pick its head up. It's going to flare its nostrils. And when Lou goes to touch this horse, that horse is going to run to the outer part of the arena. It's going to stay right by the fence line. It's not going to have any kind of relationship with his master. It's not going to have any kind of security. It's not going to have any kind of fellowship. It is going to be alone. And that's what happens with there's so many of us that have been rebellious, and many that still are rebellious, and they don't want to submit to authority. They don't want to submit to God. Yeah. So they stay out there with their head high and just full of self. He's going to slowly teach us the biblical principles of how to get that horse to keep its head low, to have a relationship with its master, to be secure and safe, and to walk side by side with the master. Phil, as we're watching this every day, I'm hoping that you and I and several of our other staff, editing staff, that we can take these principles and get our students to write 30 to 60 second, culturally relevant, biblically insightful PSAs, or just, something that can go on radio, literally professional enough to go on radio. Do you think you can help me with that?
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. The nice thing about that is that's part of what I teach in my university courses anyway. Part of what I teach in,
really,
for instance, audio broadcast journalism, which I've taught many times. What their first assignments usually are 3 PSAs, and part of what I'm teaching with them is to understand the elements of production as well. So I tell them, look, you already have you have a cell phone, an iPhone or an iPad. And so on that iPhone and iPad, you have all the means of production that you need in order to make a really good quality PSA, even good drama. But I usually do it in 3 steps. The first step is usually just a dry PSA. So here it is. You got, they're usually a 30 and a 60, 30 second and a 60 second, because that's what radio demands. It's either a 60 second bite or a 30 second bite. And so you take one, you can create your own company, create your own nonprofit organization, whatever it is, or you can take an existing one and do it that way too if you want to. And now you create a 30 and a 60 for that nonprofit. Boom. So you got those 2, and they're dry. This is with no effects, no music, no nothing. They just dry. All you're doing is concentrating on, can I get this recorded in the amount of time that I have? Yes. Boom. Take that. Then the next step is to say, okay, now you're going to go and you're going to get a music bed. You're going to do the next step is to record, not the same one. You write a new one, and now you're going to record it, and you're going to put music under it. You're either going to put music or a sound effect, So you can actually add your own sound effect, or you can go and record somebody else for an actuality. We call them actualities in news, in audio broadcasting. So you're going to record somebody else, and you're saying, the Children's Foundation of Tucson, where I'm at, the Children's Foundation of Tucson helps children do this, this, and this. Founder and operator Leo McCary says this about it, and then you get that clip, and now you're going to edit it in. So you're getting experience not only in the writing of one, you're getting experience in writing and editing. How you're going to edit that voice, the little voice track together. And then the last one that you write, you'll do a 3. You do it, that is a 30 and a 60. So you'll have to edit the music and you'll have to edit the effects. The last one is full blown. You write a 30 and a 60. You put an actuality, a sound effect, and a music bed in it. And so that way you can get some basic production stuff going, along with writing and along with performing all on your own. So yeah, I mean, we can adapt that and we can make that happen. So yeah, it looks like we're in the right place at the right time.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, new acquaintance, actually, a friendship that's budding over the last, 6 months, Phil. We just got to know each other. I've been a fan of yours for 30 plus years. Thank you for all that you have done over the years, and that allowing God to use you, beat you up at times, and then bring you back to your story.
That happens. I welcome it. Thank you, Lord.
Yes. Amen. And Phil, we're going to work together. We're going to be partnership in this kingdom pursuit and seeing lives change next week at the Lamplighter Guild, the 18th through the 23rd. Phil, this is going to be, I'm telling you, Phil, I'm psyched. This is going to be like a guild like no other. With Lou Starrett there, Eric Ludy, our staff, photography, filmmaking. Phil, I don't know if you know this, but we're doing a film.
Excellent.
Using Lou Starrett's material, as he's teaching every day. We're going to do a story, a film feature on the return of the prodigal son.
Excellent.
It's already, the script is done. Phil, I'm blown away. When you get here, we're going to let you read the script. It's only a 3-minute video, but it is so powerful. I'm praying. I've got some loved ones who are resistant to God. Mm-hmm. I am praying that this video this week is going to be the tool that God is going to use to bring people to himself, finally to humble themselves, to be like that horse that has a relationship with his master. And I'm praying that this is going to be the time of salvation. Today is the day of salvation. I'm praying that that's going to happen, Phil. And
excellent.
God wants us all to do that.
Excellent. Fantastic. Sounds great.
Brother, thank you so much. Phil Lollar, blessings to you. And I will see you in just 8 days.
Yep. Next week from tomorrow, I'll see you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Blessings, man.
All right,
See ya.
buddy. Thanks.
Yep. Bye-bye.